On the 22nd of October, China held live fire drills from its territory closest towards Taiwan. It launched drills from a place that is only 105 kilometers away from Taiwan's island. That's about 66 miles. Nice and easy for any potential missile to hit Taiwan if that were the case. So what, you're saying? This happens pretty much every other day, right? But what makes this different is that just a week ago there were large-scale drills involving encircling the island. On the 14th of October, Beijing deployed a record number of 153 military aircraft, as well as warships and Coast Guard vessels to encircle the Taiwanese island. It was an exercise designed to simulate an attack by land, sea, and air. This is not an invasion they were simulating. It's a blockade. Take a look at this picture. All corners of Taiwan were blocked and China's Coast Guard carried out a patrol across Taiwan's main island. Even more worrying, the Coast Guard called it practical action to control Taiwan. The purpose of such an exercise, if it were real, would be to cut Taiwan off from the rest of the world and make it kneel before China. It also wouldn't necessarily count as an invasion because they would be outside the border. They would just be stopping anyone getting in, including supplies for food. That would make it more dubious in terms of whether the US would feel legally obliged to get involved. China said the blockade simulation was punishment to Taiwan for their president's so-called fabrication of Taiwanese independence. You might call me paranoid, but look at this graph. The amount of times China comes in is growing. And that little spike in the middle, that is when the then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi from the United States visited Taiwan. China said, don't get involved, stay out. And look, there they are, both wearing face masks. Back when we juggled fears of a world war with a pandemic. Nice memories. Experts in international relations agree. Foreign Affairs, a US magazine of political think pieces, said earlier this year that China would squeeze, not seize, Taiwan. And you know the saying, if it rhymes, it must be true. One of Taiwan's Navy commanders also called it Anaconda strategy. China could block Taiwan whenever they wanted, he said. And he has a right to be worried. The number of incursions across the de facto border in the middle of the Taiwan Strait has jumped more than 5-fold. 36 times in January this year, 193 times this August. The number of Chinese ships operating around Taiwan has steadily risen too, from 142 in January this year, doubling to 282 in August. Those ships used to patrol for just a few hours. Now they patrol for days, and they're inching closer to the island as well. A new Taiwanese fictional TV show imagines a future where this happens in the hotly anticipated 0 Day. In this show, China conducts a false flag operation in the waters near Taiwan. It then conducts a search and rescue operation for a missing plane in the waters, giving it an excuse to implement a naval blockade surrounding Taiwan. In the show, that leads to a complete halt of international trade and a subsequent stock market crash. Some say the story will stay that way and it is just fictional. They will say China's final warning is a famous phrase, and that phrase goes back to this historical approach of China making lots of big threats but hardly ever committing to actual warfare. And those same critics would also say that China has very little experience in war as well. But some in US intel are more concerned, and indeed it would be foolish to just ignore a country's threats. Some say 0 Day isn't just fiction. And talking of fiction, I do like writing a bit of fiction, and there is another literary saying that works quite well in this argument. Chekhov's gun. Coined by the famous playwright Anton Chekhov, he said that if a gun appears in the first act of a play, you better believe that it goes off in the second act. In terms of ships in the water and simulations, we've already seen Chekhov's gun. Let's just hope that this isn't the second act yet.